Welcome to Accelerate OC, the only show focused on the people leading innovation in Orange County. Join our host, Kerry Ransom, in his conversations with the trendsetters, entrepreneurs, investors, and leaders here, because it's time to Accelerate OC.
Good morning. Welcome to Accelerate OC. I'm Kerry Ransom, and thanks always to our engineer, Paul, for making me and my guests sound so good. We are getting really comfortable here on Zoom now. And before I bring my guests on, just want to remind everybody today's episode is sponsored by OC4 Venture Studio, which is a new tech startup company building platform that has launched here in Orange County. And we are building the next generation of high growth tech companies here, along with the community of support around it. And if you're interested in learning more or getting involved, you can visit us at oc4v.com. I am super excited to have John Bradley Jackson with me here today. And before we get to hear about his career, his wisdom, his work as an investor, advisor, teacher, he's a very multifaceted guy. Let me tell you a little bit about JJ, as his friends call him. As I mentioned, he is very versatile, very accomplished in a number of areas. He's the director currently of the Cal State Fullerton Center for Entrepreneurship. And he's also the director of their startup incubator. And at the incubator, they really work with students and others to help them start and validate their business models. He's also a professor at Cal State Fullerton, where he teaches in areas of social media, entrepreneurial marketing strategy, commercialization, even new venture creation. He's also the founder of the Titan Angels, which is an angel and pre-seed investment fund based in Orange County. And they fund very early stage companies and ideas. And we'll talk about some of those today. He's the founder of the Bird Dog Group, which is a consulting firm that specializes in helping small companies in areas of marketing and sales and strategy. He's written on a number of topics around marketing, social media, and other early stage company types of topics and business strategy. And he's also on the advisory board of a number of companies and other area organizations. He's involved, for example, with the SoCal Committee for the Olympic Games, and formerly was on the board of the Los Angeles Venture Association as well. Part of what I really appreciate about JJ is he is such a pay it forward, community-minded guy, and always looking at ways to connect and contribute in at various levels, whether that's with others in our community, whether it's with students, whether it's with investors. And I just so appreciate that he does lead by example. JJ, it's so great to have you on Accelerate OC today.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, let's get to the starting line. Let's talk about the pressing news of the day. Obviously, it's on everybody's mind. The education system, you're very tied into Cal State Fullerton. The education system has been very disrupted because of COVID-19. What are you hearing from your colleagues there about how it's affecting things?
Well, I think the good news is the university space has been ripe for disruption.
Yes.
Yeah, essentially we're using a 3,000-year-old teaching model. Smart guy stands up in front of the class and talks, right? Mm-hmm. And so this has challenged the faculty and the students to really reinvent their relationship. And, it's got its hiccups. I can tell you that a Zoom call like this, technologically speaking, is not difficult. Mm-hmm. Although there is a technology divide. Not everybody has the same tools, same mastery of the tools, right? And then there's kind of an etiquette that goes with video conferencing, which you're expert at. And all of that makes for an exciting time teaching. Mm-hmm. Engagement is the password, though. And so in the COVID-19 remote teaching experience, it's the challenge to keep everybody on board and moving forward.
Yes. Well, and I see it. My wife is a kindergarten teacher, so I see it at the earliest stages of educational development all the way through, postgraduate, and I'm sure people are trying to figure out in PhD programs how to continue to move things forward. And we're doing a lot of things through OC4 in the community, even to try to provide what I would characterize as education or learning experiences, whether that is helping people through their pitches or other elements of their company development. And we're doing it all in a virtual environment. I'm here all by myself today, and typically would love to have a number of other people in here. So it will really be interesting to see where things don't return somewhat back to normal in the learning spectrum, right?
And thus the opportunity.
That's right.
So
That's right.
It's easy for us to get stuck in the grief of the changes, the
Mm-hmm.
denial and the anger, and maybe the depression. I don't
Sure.
know how far along you are in that
Yes.
cycle, but at some point in time, there's acceptance. You go, okay, well, this is where we're at,
Mm-hmm.
and now let's appreciate the now. Let's think of the opportunities that are in front of us.
That's right.
3 months from now, 6 months from now, 18 months from now. So I think it's terribly exciting, actually.
I agree. I mean, that's a great transition to, my next question, which really is, let's talk about life as an investor. I mean, I do a lot of early stage investing. You do as well. Have you seen many new startups show up on your doorstep just in the last month or so after this with new ideas around what's going to probably or potentially be on the other side?
So the answer is that there's no shortage of deal flow.
Yes.
Right. And that was true 6 months ago, 2 years ago. And even today, I'm still getting, pardon me, inquiries, to pitch their ideas and things like that. So the hard part is picking the right ones. But I think we're also headed into a period where the investor capital is going to move on the early stage, kind of from seed to feed, and it's going to help those existing startups survive. The startups run pretty lean to start with, and these challenging times will undoubtedly cull the herd.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that I think history has shown us that always tends to be the case, right? And even some of the ones that maybe thought they were going to get fed a couple months ago could be. I was talking to a friend in LA yesterday who has a pretty extensive portfolio, and he's already kind of separating them into the ones to really double down on, the ones that may need to adjust course, and the ones that might already be the Walking Dead.
Yeah, and for a small company, so let me say a startup is still looking for its customer, trying to solve a problem. A company is attempting to scale.
That's
and
right.
for that scaling company, there is never enough cash.
That's right.
Just never enough cash. And that's a precious resource right now.
Mm-hmm.
So we have the early stage startup that is looking for seed money. And then there's that next rung on the ladder, and that's the company that is attempting to move forward and scale. And that's a tough spot to be in. Series A money historically does dry up in a down market like this. At least it stalls, and it's not going to go away forever. But we even saw that in 2008. So, and by all metrics, I think our situation today is far worse.
Yeah, it sure has the potential to be. I mean, I think this is such a complicated situation that it's really hard to tell. I mean, you look at the stock market and you go, I don't get it. How I think that's the general feeling that a lot of people have of that. That's not a clear predictor of our economy when you have on the other side over 20 million people filing unemployment. There just feels like a really significant disconnect there.
Yeah, I don't look at the stock market as a direct barometer of our economy, because it's thinking ahead and it does squirrely things.
That's right.
So I don't pretend to understand it.
That's right.
But when you look at the opportunities that are here, given our new normal right now, and the best example is what we're doing. It's the remote worker. So it's the opportunity for companies to engage employees rather than in the home office, right? And then and remote workers also work differently.
Yes.
There's a lot of research on this, and that they tend to work more. They tend to be very productive. They tend to work different hours. So all of that comes together, I think, as one of the opportunities that's an outcome of our current situation.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. So as you think about investment, you mentioned some of the dynamics of where companies can potentially get challenged. But as you think about investment from the early stage standpoint, where, like Titan Angels or other groups here have tended to play, are there new either filters or investment theses that you feel like are going to be put in place because of the environment that we're in?
Yeah. So in the case of Titan Angels, we are not specialized by industry. We have a rather broad portfolio, and it all starts with good people trying to solve problems. When you look at the back end, which would be the valuations and the exits, unquestionably there are certain sectors that have and in all probability will provide a better reward. And so software as a service is probably the best example. Is the multiples there are unusually high, that the whole tech space, in particular software as a service, I would say, and you can compare that to the packaged goods, food and beverage industry. Well, those are lower multiples, but as an example, if you look at within the packaged goods in the food arena, there's the better for you, the zero sugar spaces. Those multiples are quite high. So there are many opportunities out there, and I think it fundamentally though starts with the right people on the bus.
So let's go under the hood just a little bit. Certainly, Titan Angels has been pretty active in recent years, and just to share a little bit more with the audience about what it is, how it works. Can you just tell us a little bit more about the process? And
so we're a small fund. We're for instance, there are angel networks in our community where individual investors aggregate together and share, pardon my voice today, share knowledge, deal flow, etc., and independently invest. In the case of Titan Angels, our investors invest in a fund, which is us, and then the fund invests in startups. We tend to be early stage in those investments. We tend not to be a lead investor. We tend to be a follower, and it's basically the size of a fund. It's that. And then we have a focus on companies that are Orange County. So like a lot of investors, you want the ability to drive and go see your startup face to face. And then beyond that, it's the other obvious investment criteria. Is there IP? they have a competitive advantage, and then the propensity to scale.
Mm-hmm.
We have a fondness for Titans from
Sure.
Cal State Fullerton, and that also plays into our strategy.
Mm-hmm. That's super helpful. So can you share a highlight or two of companies that you're either really excited about, or that have been sort of recent investments?
Yeah. So we're a new fund. We're only a couple years old, and the life of a fund like ours is probably 7 to 10 years.
Sure. Yeah.
And
I mean, I have ones that are into like their 12th year, so I totally understand, my friend.
Yeah. So the early exits usually aren't good ones, but actually, so we've invested in 16 companies, and so we have yet to see an exit.
Mm-hmm.
There are some startups that we've invested in that look very promising.
Mm-hmm.
But all you could do right now is say that the race has started and they're looking pretty damn good.
Yeah.
One in particular I like actually comes out of the UCI ecosystem. It's called DocBot, and they're a software as a service company that helps the physician optimize a colonoscopy to minimize colon cancer. And very exciting young company, brilliant young CEO, terrific board, all comes together, and all they've got to do now is execute and exit, and we'll be doing high fives.
That's great. So is that an example of one that was somewhat syndicated across Orange County and different groups of investors there?
The founder, who was a very young CEO, 23 years old.
Wow.
Andrew Nin is his name, and at age 12 he was coding, and by the time he was 15 or 16 he was making money as a coder. Okay. He's a college dropout, all right, but truly gifted, and his concept was actually rebuffed by many local investors.
Okay.
And why is that? I think initially it was some age bias that, hey, this is a kid's a spud here. He's not ready, and we just believed in him. And his board was incredible. His co-founding team came together, so it looked to be a smart move on our part.
That's great. That's great. So that actually is an interesting topic that I'd love to go a little deeper in. As you think about Orange County, I mean, you said, in this case, others weren't as willing to take the leap. I think one of the real strategies that we're trying to employ at OC4 is to say, look, we're willing to do that. I mean, we will say, like, we'll lead. We want others to participate here. We look at this as a community thing. We're willing to be the lead. And part of why is because we've brought a whole team of operators and folks together. So we've been building software companies for 25 years. And so that, our concerns are maybe not the same concerns as somebody who made their career in a different industry and is thinking about investing and picking winners. So as you think about Orange County and how we can work better together, I mean, this is a perfect example where I go, okay, this sounds very interesting to me in the world that I'm in. How do we collaborate better as a community to try to make sure that that we don't keep repeating history of people having to go outside to get capital for promising opportunities?
Yeah, that's a tough question to answer. So the VC money, one might argue, is not located in our backyard.
That's right. Most of it is not. That's right.
Yeah, so we're underrepresented with venture capital. There are some terrific VCs in the greater community. March Capital is one.
Sure.
And Jim Armstrong is the director there, a good friend. but I can start to name others, but the list is short. So that is something that needs to be changed over time. Angel investor community, we're very well represented. And so we're in a position to seed those early stage companies. And I think the angel groups, the networks, the funds are increasingly networking with each other and syndicating.
Okay.
In fact, the co-fund was doing a syndicated raise, approached us very recently to join in. And so there's a natural collaboration there. Mm-hmm. For the founders of companies, the wannabes, the folks that are moving forward, there is a kind of a fragmented infrastructure that exists. Mm-hmm. So there are incubators, there are accelerators. They work rather independently. And so there's an opportunity, I think, to knit those together. Yes. Because we all have a common cause, and that's to encourage startup activities and start businesses and create economic impact locally. So that's certainly an area for improvement.
Absolutely. So what are your thoughts there as far as, I mean, do we need I think the relationships, to your point, I think the relationships are improving versus when I got here 15 years ago, as far as people's openness and proactive collaboration. Do you think we need to look at technology tools and other, layering in other things to try to make it easier? I tend to orient to the entrepreneur and say, how do we, because I totally agree with you that we have this common good. Many of us have this common good mindset of, like, how do we help entrepreneurs? And so many of my conversations on Accelerate OC over the last year have been about how do we create unfair advantage for somebody trying to start a company in Orange County and not disadvantage them. Because I think if you talk to a lot of entrepreneurs here, they're going to say, I feel like I'm disadvantaged starting a company here. And I go, that's not what we want. We want you to feel like, this is the place to do it.
And I'm strongly opinionated on this. Sure. And so it's like there's some low self-esteem. It's like, I must apologize. I'm from Orange County, Yeah. And I think in Hollywood has the Hollywood sign. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it is a magnet for talent, for creativity, etc. And I think that Orange County needs to come up with its own emblem, its own story.
The giant orange.
I mean, startup land, whatever it is, Orange County startup land. Sure. We need to come up with that branding. And I think it's as simple as branding to unify what's going on here. Silicon Valley, by the way, I got news for you. It's not really a place. It's just a name. It's a brand. It's a meme, just like the Hollywood sign is. And you know where Hollywood is, really? I know where the letters are on the hill. Sure. I've been to Hollywood and Vine. Not very impressive.
No, that's not the place. That's not where stuff's happening. That's right.
Same thing with Silicon Valley. It's just kind of an amorphous area. So we have the same opportunity here, and we can embrace startups and innovation in one branded, statement, a visual. I don't know. Let's work on this one.
I'm down. You know that. Yeah. So let's play on that a little bit. I mean, as you think about that, do you think it is broadly just encouraging more startups, more entrepreneurs, or do you think we, as part of this, need to orient people to a finite number of focus areas, clusters, where people's attention should be, maybe where you can get more resource because there's more expertise, right? I mean, you've seen here as an example, one example of that would be ophthalmology, where we are truly a world leader in ophthalmology. I don't have any experience in ophthalmology, but that could be a reference for how to build density around a particular area. I mean, we actually have a remarkable number of dental companies here in Orange County, but we also have broad spectrum of a little bit of everything here too. So I think we have the ability to go super wide or an opportunity to go really deep. So I'm just curious your thoughts on where you think we should.
Well, so let's go really macro for a second. Yeah. So startups often emerge out of tough times. So we're in a unique position now for startup activity to actually boom. And part of that might be what they call entrepreneur by necessity.
Yes, that's right.
I can't get a job. I don't have a job, so I might as well create something, right?
That's right. Next best alternative.
Yeah. And another piece of that, and this may sound self-serving, is education. And it's the idea to prepare people, and the younger the better, by the way, to think entrepreneurially, to solve problems, and to have the courage to try. And so my work at the university, at the undergrad and at the graduate level, is to help that individual actually become the artist that they were when they were 5 years old, when there weren't barriers, when there weren't limitations. And so that creativity, that's the crude oil of entrepreneurship, of startup activity. And to let yourself explore new thoughts, and to break things, and to try things, and to challenge the status quo. So, I mean, that's a mindset.
Sure.
And I think we want to do everything possible to feed that and to grow that. Yeah, I mean, are there going to be certain sectors that are going to be more rewarding than others? I would say yes. And I mentioned software as a service, and we can talk med tech. But, you know, think of the creative thought that created Uber. I mean, you know, they took a tired old industry, which was the taxi cab business.
And we have a few of those here, tired old industries that probably could get rethought.
Yeah, exactly. So anyways, I think it's a fascinating time, and we just need to encourage creative thought.
Okay. So as you think about, I agree. And, you know, it is this interesting question of there's a lot of research showing that these dense clusters in certain industries have helped some parts of the world really thrive, and versus this broad community culture. And I think you need both. I think, which is probably where we're in agreement. But just to sort of play on that a little, are there industries for people who maybe just, to your point, either out of necessity or just need a refresh, right? They're mid-career and they're going, all right, I've been in manufacturing for most of my career, and maybe now I need to orient to something else. Or I've been in marketing for most of my career, and I need to apply that to an industry of the future. Are there industries that you put in your head and go, Orange County has the bones to do that well?
Yeah, it's a powerful question. I always look to solve problems. It's that the best innovation that I've witnessed, startup activity as well, is when there's an obvious problem sitting in front of your face, and then you have some special expertise that could come out of an industry, right? You know, and so a very simple example would be that the fast food companies, the restaurants, can't do business as usual. So you take a step back and say, well, what business are we in? We're in the business of feeding people. Okay, so we can prepare meals, but we could also deliver groceries.
Sure.
we can do this in a mobile environment. And fundamentally, the objective is the same. It's just let's redeploy our resources. Let's change our thinking about what we can do.
Sure. And I think Orange County, I mean, to your point, I think Orange County has a lot of depth in that quote unquote feeding people industry, right? I mean, whether it's a bigger company like a Golden State Foods that's based here, or a number of the well-known restaurant chains and concepts have been born and really grown here. So there is a legacy of that you mash that up with modern technology and logistics and other things, and there could be new ideas that come out of it, similar to commercial real estate. That this has been, if you take the Irvine Company or others that have really influenced the world from a planning and development standpoint, are there fresh ways to think about that legacy with property technology or other? So I like the collision idea of how do we take some of these legacy industries, as you even said, like tired old industries to some extent, and bring in some fresh problem solving thinking to almost do mashup types of innovation. And so, maybe that's how we try to create some of that childlike creativity in the community.
Yeah, Picasso said that every child is born as an artist. The challenge is to keep them as an artist, something to that effect. And it's certainly true. So my parting thought would be, wow, so we can fascinate with the high valuation companies that are in certain sectors. Well, let's look at the tired, mediocre industries, because those are the ones that we can disrupt and improve.
That's right. Yeah, I think that is a great call to action, to be honest with you. I mean, that drives me, gets the wheels really going, because I do agree that that's a great place to put attention. So how do you keep yourself sharp and innovative? Are there things that you do you'd like to share that others could maybe learn from?
My time in the classroom is just beautiful. I've been doing it about 19 years now, and the students, young minds, give me hope. So I take a lot of their energy. I'm just an utter continuous learner. I can go so deep on a search on the web. It's remarkable. But fundamentally, it's talking with people and exploring what other people are doing. And I learned one thing in my career, it took me a while to get it, is that if I give to others unconditionally and I ask nothing in return, I get rewarded. Now, it might be in the afterlife. Okay? But so if someone calls me, I pick up the phone. If someone emails me, I respond. And always on the premise of how I might help them. And it just has created an incredible business model for me personally. And as dumb as that sounds, you help other people achieve what they want to achieve, and it's like a flywheel. It's going to come back and help.
I totally subscribe to that and appreciate you for being that way. So, thank you for leading by example in that regard, JJ. I think that's so powerful for people of any age and experience. So, final lap here at Accelerate OC. Paul's giving me the wrap up here. That last experience that you just shared and sort of approach is so valuable. Any other advice or wisdom or lessons you'd love to leave with the audience, particularly entrepreneurs in this environment that either are starting something now or in the midst of it, or really, to your point earlier, feeling like this is my time and I need to go start something?
Yeah, so you always do it now. When you're looking at a problem or an opportunity, I can guarantee you that there are thousands of others doing the same exact thing. And so fundamentally, you got to dig in and try to understand the problem, who the customer really is, and how you might help them. And that takes a lot of work. And that's where most startup founders blow it, is they rush to their prototype, to their minimum viable product, and they don't do their homework. And son of a gun, they discover that this isn't right. Well, if you'd done your homework on the front end, you might well discover that they were focusing on the wrong customer, or maybe even the wrong problem.
Sure. That's a great advice. So JJ, thank you so much for joining me today and taking us on this fun ride. Some great discussion here on what I think is going to be the future now here in Orange County. And there's so much to work with that I think gives you and I both a lot of hope of what can be. And I get excited when I get to talk with folks like you, who I know are going to help make that reality. And I see, this is a challenging time, but such a brighter future for Orange County because of folks like you in our community. So thanks for all you do. You're definitely doing your part to accelerate OC. Welcome to the family.
All right. Thank you so much. Take care.
You've just listened to Accelerate OC. Join our live recordings every Tuesday morning at accelerateoc.com, or listen, like, and share anytime from your favorite podcast spot. Let's accelerate OC together.